What makes a great impression on you from your students in your first meeting?
When I first meet with students, the things that make the best impression are going to be that they're on time. I totally get that students, sometimes our offices can be difficult to find, but punctuality is really important. I think also if a student has particular questions, it's really helpful to have those written down. If I can get them in advance, great. But even if I don't get them in advance, that way we make sure that we answer all those questions and make the most time out of our meeting together. And then I think probably the other piece that really makes a good impression is just that students come well prepared. So if we've been talking about something or there's some questions about, say, courses or whatever, if a student can come prepared as much as possible with any background materials, or like I said, can send those ahead of time, it just, especially if you've only got a half an hour or 45 minutes, it just makes sure that we get to talk about everything that's really, really important during that time.
There are some simple things that make a good impression on me when I'm meeting a student advisee for the first time. Basic things like the student's on time for the meeting, the student comes prepared with a pen and a notebook or paper or something to write down anything that might be important during our meeting. And the student has read the student handbook, which I'm surprised how many students haven't necessarily read the student handbook before they come and meet with me and before they're starting with the program. And I'll just say the student handbook is the most valuable, or one of the most valuable documents that you'll have in your degree program. It's really the comprehensive guide of everything you need to know, or if it doesn't contain information that you need to know, it at least usually has a direction for who you need to ask and where you need to get that information.
How should students communicate their goals for their degree?
Certainly when students apply to the program, there is the essay that you write. And, faculty advisors do look at those essays to try to get some input on their students before they meet them for the first time. I think for students as well, I see a lot of students who think, oh gosh, I have so many interests and I'm really just supposed to have one or two and I'm supposed to be focused. No, I think that's pretty par for the course, that students come in with a wide variety of interests, and that's okay. Your goals may change during your program, and that's perfectly normal, because as you get exposed to more topics and more sort of the nuances of topics through your coursework, you might have an aha moment where you just figure out, yes, I really want to work with incarcerated women, or yes, I really want to be involved with the WIC program. And that's a great thing, because that means that the classes are meeting your needs and they're stimulating that conversation. So I would say don't get overly concerned about having to have everything perfect and coming in with that, I've planned out my program already and this is what I'm going to do. If you do that, that's great. But just, faculty advisors are used to students not always knowing exactly what they want to do or changing things, and just being comfortable with you doing that. And for you to be comfortable with coming to your faculty member and saying, hey, this is kind of where I was last semester, but gosh, I'm thinking this. Just being comfortable with that and being open about that, because faculty truly do understand that that's part of the graduate school experiences, broadening your horizons and developing new skills and new interests.
Students don't need to know exactly what they want to do with their careers or have an exact line of work that they want to study, a specific population that they're interested in when they come and see me on day one. In fact, I often enjoy when students, have questions about what they're interested in and want to explore some different areas. I think that really lets you make good use of your time here at the University of Minnesota. So that the idea that I think some students have when they walk in the door, that they should really have their objective and interest laid out already, that's not necessarily true. if students do have goals, specific goals for the time in their program, they should communicate those with their advisor as clearly as possible. Communicate kind of exactly what it is they're after, so their advisor can help them identify ways of potentially meeting those goals, gaining the skills that they want, gaining exposure that they want. So really being as upfront as possible and as open as possible in communicating the goals that you do have can be really helpful.
How can a student build a lasting relationship with their advisor?
Some advisors, just by nature, are in more frequent contact with their students. It may be because they have classes with their students. It may be because they just email periodically. Other advisors don't necessarily always reach out to students. And part of that, I think, is because they know students get umpteen thousand emails during a semester, and they're trying not to bog the student down with yet one more email. So if you have, if it's been a while and you haven't had a lot of contact with your advisor, I think it's always a great idea to just reach out and with a question, reach out with not just when you're doing your ILE or your APEX or necessarily when something has to be signed, but just reaching out maybe around registration time and saying, these are the courses I'm thinking of taking, or I'm trying to decide between these two electives. Do you have any input? That really helps the advisor get to know the student and the student get to know the advisor outside of just that. Every time you need a signature, you get an email, that deepening relationship. I think the other piece is, if you can take courses that your advisor teaches, if that's an option, that's ideal, because you really do get to know the students in a course much more than you do students outside of a course, because you have that weekly contact with them. But it doesn't mean that you still can't have a good advisee-advisor relationship without that. It's just that I think it takes a little bit more time and effort to make that happen. But periodic email once or twice a semester, just to keep, that you fresh in their mind and the advisor connected to you is a really good idea.
How can students build a lasting relationship with their advisor? In my experience, the first step to that is communication. I enjoy getting updates from my students during the course of their degree program. We try to make it a priority to meet every semester, sometimes more often if students are in need of meeting. But I've had a number of advisees over the years who don't necessarily want to meet with me, don't necessarily communicate with me over email. And that just leaves me with a lot of questions about who they are and what they want, and leaves me feeling like I can't really support them. And so building a lasting relationship, I think, really involves reaching out. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to set up a meeting with your advisor, just reaching out and letting them know, hey, I finished my fall classes. They went great. I really enjoyed this specific class or this specific instructor. I got all A's. Highlighting things that you did really well, things that you're proud of, accomplishments that you've done. I completed my APEX and it gave me some great connections to such and such agency. I love getting those updates from students. And I think a lot of times students, they don't think the faculty member is necessarily interested in hearing those things, or they think they might be bothering the faculty member if they email. I really enjoy that. And the fact is, if you're not on your faculty advisor's radar and they don't know what's going on with you, it's hard for them to have a relationship with you. So I'd really encourage you to do that during your time in your degree program.
What are some strategies to engage your advisor in your work?
I think just an email outlining sort of what you're doing, just to update your advisors so they kind of know where you're at and what's going on. A lot of the times your advisor is going to be somewhat involved because you may need a signature, you may need assistance with an IRB application or something like that, but that may not always be the case. And so again, I think that's part of that once or twice a semester, just checking in, maybe, hey, do you have 15 minutes to have coffee with me, or half an hour to have coffee? Faculty, for the most part, are more than willing to meet with students over on the East Bank campus, even though our offices are in the West Bank, because it's easier for students. And I think those informal interactions are where you really get more of the opportunity to, I don't want to say deepen your relationship, but those are the pieces that take you beyond advisor-advisee to more of a colleague or a mentoring kind of relationship. And then again, just not being afraid to email your advisor. And, you know, it's perfectly fine to send an email and say, these are 3 things that I'm doing, I might need some help with, or 3 things, I just want to let you know what I'm involved with. Here are the 3 things, short little description. And then your advisor can follow up on that and offer any advice or any mentoring that you need.
The students that I've been most engaged with over the years have been students who communicate frequently with me, keep me updated on what's happening, and then students who have also found interests that build off of interests of my own. You know, it's important to recognize that, and I think a lot of students do, that advisors have their own, right, portfolio of work. They have their own goals. They have their own projects set up. And when students take the time to come in to learn about my work and to say, like, hey, how could I fit into your work? Or how could I kind of springboard off of a piece of your work? Or is there a question related to your work that you've always wanted to answer, or a product that you've always wanted to develop and you think could be useful to the community or something, and you just haven't had the effort, the manpower to do it? Is that something I'd be able to contribute to? The students that I see really, really having sustained and frequent interaction with their faculty members and really getting their faculty members involved in their work have carefully designed the work that they're taking on, so they're integrating themselves into that faculty member's work and doing things that are useful to that faculty member while also meeting the student's own goals. That symbiotic relationship is important to keep in mind as you think about what faculty members you want to build a relationship with. It may not be your advisor, maybe it's another faculty member, but thinking about not only what you can get from the relationship and what you want to learn, but how could you align those goals and interests and what you want to get with ways that you could be helpful to the faculty member's team or their agenda or their project or their community stakeholders, et cetera.